going on YouTube? All right, so I'm having a bit of a problem with this car, and let me show you what it is. So I popped the code for one, and when I start this thing up, it'll start up fine, and when it tries to idle down, it'll just die. Let me show you guys. Open the garage door just a little bit. Here we go. Starts up fine, and when the car starts to warm up, it'll just start running rough and eventually die. As you can hear and see, that RPM gauge is kind of bouncing back and forth. And it's starting to stumble. It wants to idle down, but it'll catch itself from turning off, and RPM goes back up. So it gets much worse. It'll eventually get to the point where it's barely running and trying to keep going. Here's a little example of that. But yeah, it gets a lot worse, and yeah, I'm getting tired of dealing with this. So what I'm going to do today is clean the idle air control valve. But first thing I got to do is move this car over and put it on ramps, and we'll go. Okay, I got the car up on ramps. Now, you don't have to have it on ramps. I'm only doing it so I don't have to be so hunched over. So this is a 2000 Civic LX, and this is a D16Y7, and this doesn't have the normal throttle body you see on D16s. So this is for all you D16Y7 guys that are maybe looking for a video to help you guys do this. So this video should help you guys work on your own thing, and yeah, let's move along. So first thing I'm going to do is take this intake tube off, and that's pretty straightforward. You just pull up on it. All right, and this you can just pull right off. Put this aside. Next is to take off this air box. Okay, there's a filter, and I mean, this goes without saying, just make sure nothing goes into that throttle body. All right, so next move is to take off this lower part of the intake box off. And for that, you got a nut right here, and you got a hose clamp holding that box, lower box, to the throttle body, and that hose clamp is down there. So if you're wondering why I'm showing you this angle of the hose clamp, it's because the 8mm bolt on that hose clamp is right at this location. So it's not going to be fun, at least I don't think so, but you'll get it. One more thing you got to remove is this plug right here. Now be careful. Most of these plastics are brittle, so be gentle. I'm going to take that off, and I'll be right back. Okay, so as I mentioned, this stuff is brittle. I was kind of afraid to disconnect this. Just feels like this little clip's gonna break, so I just pulled it out. It's in a rubber grommet, as you can see. You can just pull it straight out, and there's also a clip that goes into this square. It was like this, and so you're just gonna take some needle nose pliers, squeeze this clip together, and pull down, and that should come right out. All right, once you get to this point, you're gonna have to remove this coolant line down here and this vacuum line. So let me do that. That's pretty self-explanatory. I'm gonna be removing it from this location because the coolant line goes underneath the fuel rail, and this vacuum line is above, so it's a good spot, at least I believe, to remove it from. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I removed the clamp for the vacuum line and the clamp for the coolant line. So now you can pull this straight up. If it doesn't want to pull straight up, you might have to loosen up that hose clamp a little more. Can you guys see? Hopefully. So there it is. So as I mentioned, this is the bottom of the box, and that's the hose clamp that you got to loosen up. There's that 8mm bolt. So I might have had it just a little tight, but I was able to pull it off. And that's what we got to pull out next. But before you start taking anything off, just make sure there's nothing around that might fall into that intake. When you pull this off, you might as well take care of it now before you forget. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to get a vacuum, get some air, and just try to suck up or blow anything out of the way. What I'm going to do next is take this throttle cable out of the way and its bracket, and only because you got two coolant lines down there that you're going to have to remove to take the throttle body all the way off. So I'm going to disconnect the cable from the throttle body. Okay, and now, as I mentioned, I'm going to take this bracket off, and that's two 10 mils. And I'm just going to move it over to the side. Alright, I just moved it over to the side here. I didn't disconnect the cable from the bracket. I just kind of moved it over together. But what's next is those hoses I mentioned, those coolant hoses. And they're both right there. And so I already got the hose clamp off the one, so I should be able to just pull this down and that pops off. And the only reason I did it from there is because I believe it's easier to work from that location. And then you're gonna get your bottom one, your bottom hose clamp off, and pull back on that hose. Okay. Alright, so that bottom hose clamp is facing up. You can just easily move it with your finger and rotate it to get to it to move it over. Alright. And use whatever plier you think you can use to break that loose on that fitting and shove it over. I'm going to use something different. Okay, she's loose. Just be careful. Try to be gentle. Alright, I'm going to leave it at that point. And once I take this throttle body out of the way, I'll pull that hose off. Alright, so next step is removing all of the plugs off the throttle body. So you got 1, 2, and 3. There's 1. There's 2. And there's 3. Last step we got to do to take this throttle body out is remove these 4. So there's 2 nuts and 2 bolts. Those 4 hold the throttle body down. So let me do that next. And just in case you were wondering, these are 12 mil. Now you should be able to just pull this off. If it's not coming off, just hit it lightly with some kind of soft hammer. But I got lucky. Mine came right off. Okay. All right, just to be safe, put something over that giant hole in the intake. And here's the throttle body. So what we're going for is this guy here. So this is the front piece that needs to come off. This is the idle air control valve. So we got 4 8 mil bolts holding that to the throttle body, and that's what we got to remove. And this should pull right off. And there you go. Let me try to get a light and show you guys a little better. It doesn't look too bad, but I'm gonna clean it up and hopefully it works a little better. So there's that. And here's this side of it. Looks clean. And as far as the seal goes, it doesn't look too bad. I ordered a new seal, and I'll show you guys the seal and the part number. This should just pull right out. But yeah, I'm gonna clean this up. I might take this motor off and move that whatever you want to call that piece inside, mechanism inside there, move it around so I can make sure that this piece is cleaned. So yeah, let me clean this up a little bit, and if I end up taking this off, it should just be 2 Phillips screws right there. So yeah, I'll be right back. So I already loosened one up. Okay. Okay, see all that stuff inside there? Glad I took that apart. And I got this small engine repair kit screwdriver set, and it comes with these little brushes. And that's what I'm going to use to clean the inside of this without trying to scratch it up. Okay, got this cleaned up. Moves freely. Now, this is a great time to clean up your throttle body. And that's what I'm going to do next. That's all cleaned up. Not perfect, but it'll do. One thing I did want to mention is when you put this back together, you don't have to worry about where this little mechanism inside is. Once you put this back together, I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but once you put this back together, you'll notice that that mechanism will go back in its location wherever this motor is inside. As you can tell, that went back into its spot. I'll show you guys one more time. I'll put this wherever, and when you put this back together, it ends up where it was when you took it apart. So just wanted to show you guys that. Oh, one more thing. When I put this back together, I am going to put a little bit of Honda Bond. You guys can use whatever you want, RTV, and only because, as you saw, there was some two-face tape applied to that. And I'm thinking they just wanted no weather to kind of get in there, so I'm going to do the same. A little bit of RTV around that, and like I said, a little bit of RTV. All right, now I'm going to spread this around. Okay, spread that around. I wouldn't get any on the shaft. You know, you don't want anything to stick, but one thing I did want to show you guys is this thing's magnetized. Pretty cool. I did not, I thought it was this thing that had the magnet, but it's actually the shaft. The end of this shaft is magnetized. Cool. Alright, I'm going to put this back together. It only goes on one way. If you try to put it on any other way, this part gets in the way and won't let you apply it. So that's back together. And I'm going to be putting a new seal just to make sure there is no issue. That's the seal. And this is the part number. Hopefully you guys can see that. So let me take this out of there. And this seal goes on the throttle body first because it's got a groove for it. So it'll stay in place. And got my screws ready to go here. And this only goes one way. Just follow the shape. And just make sure that your gasket doesn't move when you put that back on. And tighten these down in a crisscross pattern. So I'm just getting them down a little bit with that. I'm sure there's a torque spec, but just try to feel it out. Even pressure, about the same amount on each screw, and you should be good. And there you go. that's back together. So one more thing we got to do before we put that throttle body back in its spot is replace this gasket, and it's paper and it might not come off easily, but try to take this off the best that you can. Got that off and all cleaned up, and I used a plastic 3M bristle brush. This is a white one. This is what they recommend for aluminum, so that's what I used. I've been using them for a while and I haven't had a problem yet, so that's what I used to clean that up. I did the same to the throttle body on the bottom, just a couple spots where I had some stuff. So this is the gasket, that's the part number, and let's open this up. Okay, there you go. So let's pop this on there. And this only goes on one way. Not like that. So I believe it goes on like that. There you go. Looks good. Just like that. So we'll grab this guy again and try to get it to where it's supposed to go. Drop it in place. Oh, yeah, the coolant hose on the bottom, gotta pop that back in. Got the coolant line back into place. You got the hose clamp on there, same with this guy over here. So that part's done. Next part is putting the bolts and nuts on the throttle body. So let's drop those into place. Okay, snug them up, and then use a ratchet to tighten those up again. I'm sure there's a torque spec. I don't know it. I'm just gonna hand tighten these and try to do an even amount. And in a crisscross pattern, and you should be fine. Okay. One more time. Okay, there we go. So my next step is going to be plugging everything back in. And now I'm going to do the throttle cable again. Install the cable back on the throttle body. All right, so we're at the point where we're going to install the bottom half of the air box. And before I do, remember that hose clamp I was talking about? One thing you should know is that this hose clamp has a certain spot that it has to fall into. So this air box has that plastic piece on the opposite side of it, and the hose clamp has a little like cutout for that piece. Just make sure that you put this back in its spot. Don't forget about this vacuum hose. Alright, now this is the time for the hose clamp. And there's one more bolt. Goes here. Filter back in. Top of the box. Remember this guy? Make sure you put that back in. Don't forget the intake hose. Okay. And again, this just pops into place. And that's it. So, since we opened the cooling system, you're gonna need to burp the coolant system. If you YouTube it, I'm sure there's videos of those kits being used. I'm gonna briefly show you what that kit looks like and kind of describe how to do it. But it's very simple. You just use the cap, an extension, and the cone. Fill the system with coolant, start the car, turn your heater on, and just let it idle. Bubbles will start coming out of the system, and once you see no more bubbles, you should be good to go. So let me get that kit going. I'll be back and I'll show you guys what that looks like. Okay, here it is. Burping kit. So like I mentioned, it's just got a cap, a collar, and the funnel itself. So you just fill it, start your car, and you'll see bubbles starting to appear. You'll see the fluid drop, and if it runs empty, just fill it more. And when you see no more bubbles, you should be good. But yeah, just pay attention to how low this is getting. So let me start this up, and we'll see how it idles once it starts warming up. Here we go. Sure, I'm gonna have to erase that code, but as long as it can idle down by itself without stumbling and turning off, I'm happy. And so far, so good. And again, you want to turn your heat on all the way. By the way this is acting, at this point I'm going to call it a success, because before it would be stumbling all over the place by now. You see it idling down. in a little bit. The battery's about to die, and I don't think you want to watch a video of this thing just warming up. So I'll be back, guys. All right, so there it is. Burped the cooling system. I didn't see any more bubbles, so I closed it off. And I cleared the code, but so far so good. I'm happy with the results. Like I said before, it would try to idle down and it would just stumble and it wouldn't catch itself and it would just turn off. So I'm happy that they found a fix for it. There you guys go. If you guys are looking for a video on how to clean the idle air control valve on your Civic D16Y7. Hopefully this does the trick for you and helps you. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.